Hey everybody, Hillbilly Heart here. Just wanting to have a discussion today. I've been in super bad flare mode, and today's the first day I've actually felt like a human being. But I've been noticing something in all of my internet surveillance, we'll call it that, this last couple of weeks where I've been resting more than normal. There's a lot of people in a lot of random states that you wouldn't necessarily think are huge population hunting states, that hunters have been seeing weird colors within game animals they've harvested to consume. We're talking neon blue, neon yellow, and lots of other colors. Now, being someone that's performed a lot of meat processing, a lot of taxidermy in my time, there are lots of colors that can be made from a carcass as it going through numerous states. Some can be determined just by if you field dress it or how long you left it before you field dressed it, or if you field dressed it, if you bled it out in the field, or if you didn't. There's just a lot of color changes that can be made in the tissue, muscle, and abdomen cavity based on just normal things. But some of these colors are not normal, and with the rampant use of AI lately, I'm just wondering, are we seeing the truth? That's my question. I don't know, so I'm going to put it to you all. Now, while I have been a lifelong hunter, I've worked on a lot of farms. I've managed cattle farms, horse farms. I've showed sheep, cattle, horses. And I've done a little bit of everything with every kind of livestock. This kind of smells funny to me because I've also been a lifelong hunter. And the one thing I have noticed in my lifelong time of hunting and harvesting wild game and eating the wild game that we harvest, bear chili is awesome, by the way, is that every year the restrictions change or the walls come in a little bit more. So I'm beginning to wonder, as these things are occurring, is it perchance just for power dynamic and regulation, licensure, and profit? Or is it something a little bit more malevolent? You be the judge, but I'm going to tell you what I found while I'm researching. So, as we all know, back in 2023, I believe the USDA actually approved fake meat to be produced and consumed. And as we know, for the last several years leading up to that and beyond, Bill Gates has been the biggest purchaser of farmland in the United States. Really. And then after that, they started pushing that beef cattle, was the reason that climate change was occurring, even though they really produce less than 2% of the entire emissions issue, which always boggled my mind. And there'll be links to everything down below in the description if you want to go and review for yourself. But it made me wonder why the top two companies that were approved by the USDA to make this fake meat and sell it for human consumption are both backed by Bill Gates. So when I started seeing stories about deer, wild hog, and rabbits having weird colors or issues to watch out for, and these, I call them scare stories, being spread across the different outlets, it made me kind of sit back and go, okay, what's going on here? Because every time in my life, 47 years, I have seen something like this happen. Normally there's a scare tactic. This was used quite heavily with chronic wasting, blue tongue, all of that. There's still heavy restrictions and heavy fines that you have to pay if you don't follow every rule, if you hunt out of state and want to bring your processed meat back, if you want to bring a taxidermy animal back, if you want to bring a tanned hide back. There are a lot of rules and regulations and fines and fees that you have to pay. They have really turned hunting, and like I said in a previous video, into one of the top income earners, job producers, and earnings in the United States. So it stands to reason that if we lose hunting capabilities, they have to replace it with something. Could it be being replaced with the fake meat? Are they trying to make this shift? And are they trying to push the fear factor possibly in these stories to make people not want to consume wild meat, make them hesitant, scared, or simply uneducated in what could potentially be going on, so that the consumption of the false meats will boom, and they will be in control completely of the food industry from basically all angles. Because some of the top meats that are consumed in the United States are white-tailed deer, wild hogs, and rabbits. Rabbits are produced by the hundreds of millions, and worldwide, but are a huge harvesting animal because they reproduce rapidly. They're fairly easy to raise, and they don't take a lot of space, and they don't eat a lot of food. So, are they trying to get a handle on the people that eat wild meat so that they can scare everybody else, and the people that are actively eating it, they can kind of make them wary, or they can gain control through this ulterior motive here, through the fear and saying we have to restrict things and monitor this. Is it something like what we saw with the Amish, where you can't have they had the community swap things, and private groups for meat and milk and stuff like that? Are they going to crack down on hunting next instead of just the Amish people? Now, my father runs a beef cattle farm, and he has some of the nicest beef cattle that I've ever seen. He sent one that was under a year old to slaughter last month, well, about a week and a half ago, and it was almost 1,200 pounds on the hoof. And if you know beef cattle, that is almost unheard of. My dad is a very good beef cattle producer. He knows what he's doing. I would like to think I have some of that knowledge in me too, but he's been in the game for 73 years. He knows way more than me. But when I cook that meat, it is so clean. There is no grease in my pan. I don't have to use a paper towel to sop it up. And I certainly don't have to flavor it very much because it has such a good flavor. I've never experienced a meat alternative that has that sensation, ever. But I have noticed that a lot of the meat that we get from grocery stores looks like it's been cut with something else. So perhaps they're cutting it with more fat to spread the meat out, because I've noticed that any kind that you get from the store, unless you pay a unheard of fee for it, is very much fat ridden. The other two, whitetail and rabbit, whitetail is normally raised by farmsteads, homesteaders. Again, that looks like an Amish equivalent for me, taking control of these people that have found a way to produce for their own families. The wild hogs, this is something that I want you all to hear. So about 25 years ago, there was a huge surge in boar hunting in the United States, predominantly in the south, southeast, and southwest. They said it was from hogs coming up from Mexico, South and Central America. But if you were in the circles and you watched the exotic animal auctions and the livestock trades, you saw a lot of people shipping in wild Russian boar and sows. Now, these were not domestic. Domestic hogs have a dip in their nose. Wild Russian boar have a straight nose. Their skull's almost straight, perfectly straight. Matter of fact, David's working on some skulls. I can show you a hog skull in just a minute. We'll get to that in a minute. Perhaps, because these people brought these in against a lot of state and federal laws. They brought these hogs in and released them on their private land, so then they could say they had a hog problem and turn their land into a hunting lodge. They did it in a roundabout way so that they didn't have to follow the USD mandates and a bunch of other regulations. How do I know this? My brother had a hunting lodge that he stocked illegally and ran illegally, and he saw other people skirting issues and making a lot of money by skirting the issues and doing this illegal practice, bringing in the hogs, creating basically an ecological nightmare, because those hogs can destroy acres and acres of land in a night. And then they would say, oh yeah, the state would say, oh yeah, well, here's an eradication permit, go at it. My husband still traps and works on a farm that is still dealing with the after effects of the wild hog issue that was brought here in my area specifically for hunting purposes. He has an eradication permit right now from the TWRA to get all the hogs possible off of this land, because it borders the big South Fork recreational area, and they don't want them in there anymore. They're too big, too numerous, and doing too much damage to the land. So wild boar is plentiful. People can harvest them and eat them. Once you eat wild hog, you're not going to go back to store-bought pork. You're just not. Now, it's cleaner. It tastes better, and it's better for you. Store-bought pork does not even register for me anymore. I don't like it. I don't want to eat it. And I'm lucky that my husband is a trapper, and he gets to also help these farmers eradicate nuisance, and we get to eat all the meat. It's a win-win situation. Deer, Deer is like the #1 harvested game animal in many states because it's easily hunted, easily found, and it's just kind of like a newbie game for a lot of people that want to try hunting. Deer are always going to be plentiful. as long as they can find little snippets of farmland to raise on. And they recover pretty easily from humans moving into their areas. Now, notice that the three I'm talking about, two can be farmed very successfully, the hog and the rabbit. And we have a lot of hog farms, and we have a lot of rabbit farms. And we have a lot of people producing these meats in like a wild way. So they're either harvesting wild hogs and keeping those hogs to slaughter, or they're raising rabbits and keeping those rabbits to slaughter. But what about deer? There are deer farms. Deer farms have a lot of regulations, the fence height and spacing and stuff like that. Why? Because deer are very persnickety, much like sheep. They'll just die because they woke up one day and decided they want to. So there's not a lot of money to be made in deer unless you really raise the exotics, like the fallow axis and all those other little speckled things that run around. So are we dipping into game animals because they also cross correlate with homestead, farmstead production animals for meat consumption? And are they trying to grasp control of these specific areas because that will grasp control of the largest population of the people that consume and hunt these things, and will scare away a lot of other people that are possibly thinking about eating meat? It makes me wonder, because in my area, the top three game animals consumed would be deer, hog, and rabbit. Bear is coming up to a fourth because we have so many bear here now. They're just so numerous. I'm lucky. I grew up in hunting circles and have eaten probably everything that can be harvested. And I've probably eaten more home-produced, raised, or hunted meat in my life than I have store-bought meat. I'm very lucky to say that. I ran broiler house chickens, had 21,000 to a house. Some houses have it 40,000. Oh my gosh. But I worked those when I was in high school. My family had some. I knew that they fed them crushed up antibiotics, and they were not healthy birds. They were sterile. They were just dumb, stupid, got fat, and got killed. They were useless. You could put them in your chicken lot, but the other chickens hated them. They just got fat till their legs gave way, and you had to cook them and eat them. They served no other purpose. So when I see them putting their little grubby paws on things that I love, I'm wondering, is it going to end up like a broiler house chicken? Useless? Sterile? Much like the seeds? Now that Monsanto owns most of the seeds, most seeds are not heirloom quality anymore. They're restricting seed sales across state lines. They don't want you to purchase a seed that you can harvest seeds from and then replant a garden. They want you beholden to them to purchase seeds every year to have what you want. Why? Because they genetically reconstruct or reconfigure those plants, and I think to me it's just another form of control. So while I look at this from different perspectives, I obviously have blind spots. I want to know, what is your perspective? Growing up in the sticks and looking at someone wanting to start to scare people from the animals that I've depended on my entire life to survive, it makes me take a step back and go, what's going on here? Because if you know how to harvest an animal and process an animal, you know how to look for health. So it's not a very scary issue because you can identify health or disease in an animal very easily. And so you know what you're eating. But what about people that don't know this? Like if you go on Reddit and Quora, there's so many people that don't even know what animals are legal to harvest. There was some guy wondering if animals, like rabbits, were legal to be eaten. There's just a lot of people that do not live specific lifestyles anymore because the urban and metropolis sprawl is just so intoxicating. Many people never leave the city. So is this just a way to start to limit the people that produce, raise, consume, or hunt these animals? Is it a power play? Is it a fake meat power play? Is it a control mechanism? Is it more of the genetic modification of our foods and plants and resources so that we can't benefit from them as one would from a natural item? I have a lot of questions. But I can tell you I've never seen these weird colors in animals. Ever. They can make their own weird colors, naturally from different issues, but I've never seen a fluorescent yellow or a neon blue. Now, blue tongue and chronic wasting disease, that is normally identified by multiple lesions on deer's faces or necks and heads and bodies. They often will have their tongue swell up and hang out of their mouths, or they will walk in circles. A lot of people don't know this, but if you've ever seen an animal walking in circles, stay away from it. That is a neurological issue. So it's probably either rabid or it has some kind of neurological issue like chronic wasting disease, and it's got a disease basically in its brain. Don't get around it. Call your Wildlife Resources Agency, and they will deal with the animal because they want those eradicated from the gene pool. But are these things much like the tick diseases we saw peter down from the Northeast, and these new bees that are being sent out with these new modified vaccination protocols? Um, it piques my interest, to say the least. Especially now with people um, wondering what is actually going to become of the situation in DC. Now, while I'm not completely against looking at people that are chronically homeless, chronically mentally ill, chronically um, drug dependent, and saying, here, let me give you some options, because residing on land that you don't own and, putting other people in fear is probably not the best scenario for you. They can either take that help or they can move along. I'm not against that, because I think that more of our monies should go to help people, because it takes about 14 times on average of sending somebody to treatment before it sticks. And I think everybody's worth that. At the same time, I don't want super control mechanisms happening to everyone across the board because they hit hard times. Right now, it looks like, there's going to have to be a criminogenic part to that somehow, whether you're residing on land that's not yours and you refuse to move, squatters and stuff like that. Right now, I don't see any issue with it, but could it become more controlled, more contrived, more dictated? I don't know, but I don't trust politicians. And right now, I don't trust the justice system either, because it seems like judges, journalists, they think they're politicians as well. So I just look at this from a perspective of, what are they force feeding me in hopes that I will regurgitate what? So I'm looking at what's getting regurgitated right now. It seems to be fear. You should never go to fear first. You could go to curiosity and understanding, but don't go to fear first. So I'm sitting back and trying to understand, watch this, and pull intel and information. So tell me what you're seeing in your areas. If you have personally witnessed this, I have not. Some of the pictures look kind of AI, I'm not going to lie. So I don't know what to believe because of the capacities of evil men in the world these days. But I want to hear from you. Are you seeing this? Have you witnessed this yourself? Have you harvested an animal and went to process it and seen these coloration, these variations of normal innards? I want to know, because I just don't think it smells right. So I'll put the links below in the description of what I looked through to pull this information. But just be prepared. It's the government is doing a huge land recoup. So a lot of people are on Medicaid. A lot of people are on the level of Medicaid that makes your home go back to the state because of the care they provide to you. A lot of people are on reverse mortgages that basically gives the home back to the highest bidder at the end of your life when it sells. And we see government or government entities taking this up, or large people like Bill Gates taking this up. We don't see a lot of small homes and land owned by small people anymore. We see these large corporations paying large numbers for large acreage, and there is no middle ground in home and farm ownership anymore. It's very scary to see. So are we seeing just a government subsidiary being formed here? And are they getting so greedy that it's feeding over into the people that even harvest wildlife in the wilderness that is still left in our areas? If that is occurring, why? What is the benefit? Is the benefit because they have created fake meat and they, number one, want us dependent upon them, consuming all the foods that they create and modify? Do they really think it's healthy? Because those fake meats are highly processed and full of sodium and other issues. Just the genetic modification freaks me out. So, yeah, let's just talk about it in the comments and see what's going on, because it just doesn't pass the smell test to me. It just does not. It seems like we're trying to scare people from consuming the 3 top animals, basically in the U.S. There's some more elk and moose and stuff, but across the entirety of the U.S., those are like the 3 top that you can find in almost every state. Is this the motive? I wish I always knew the motivation of our politicians and our lawmakers. It would make life a lot easier. All right, thanks for spending time with me. Put your comments down below. Let's talk about this. Also, go to the Synergy channel on Odyssey or Synergy on Ko-Fi. Synergy is P-S-I-N-E-R-G-Y. And let's talk about it there, because I'm sure Sabrina has got some ideas about this as well. We come from different avenues. We don't always agree, and we talk about things differently, but we both know the benefit of hearing everyone's input. So share away and let me know what you think. Bye, guys.